All right, today we're going to talk about someone truly remarkable. His name is Timothy Kang Ma, and his story, wow. It takes us from this really tough childhood in the mountains of Myanmar through this absolutely terrifying escape, all the way to a life filled with incredible purpose.
In this quote here from Khalil Gibran, it just hits the nail on the head. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. It perfectly sets the stage, because Timothy's story is all about how the deepest wounds we carry can actually become our greatest strengths. It's pretty incredible.
So, where does Timothy's story even begin? Well, it starts with this memory he has from when he was just 2 years old. Can you imagine? He describes it as feeling sharp as broken glass. He's just lying in his room, totally frozen, while he hears his parents arguing. It's that raw, unfiltered fear. You know, the kind you feel when the one place that's supposed to be your safe haven suddenly feels like a war zone.
So, a journey from brokenness. This really is the theme of his early life. It all starts in this remote mountain village in Myanmar. And when I say remote, I mean it. We're talking no paved roads, no electricity, just life lived by the rhythms of nature.
His whole world just falls apart when he's 2, right after that memory, because that's when his parents split up. So he ends up being raised by his grandparents in this super isolated village. It's not until he's in 4th grade that he finally moves to a town, and you can imagine, that move just completely blew his world wide open. And his grandparents, they really became his rock, but they were like 2 different worlds in one household. You had his grandfather, a devout Buddhist, who was all about education and kindness. He pushed Timothy hard in his studies. And then there was his grandmother, a devoted Christian who was teaching him about resilience, practical skills for just getting by. It was this mix that gave him the stability his own parents just couldn't provide.
Okay, this next part it's just heartbreaking. So one day he's with his friends and they point to this woman walking by a river. They tell him, "Hey, that's your mom." So his friends are kind of pushing him, "Go on, say something." And he calls out to her, "Mom, Mom." And she just keeps walking, doesn't even turn around. Can you just imagine that feeling? That one moment just sealed this profound sense of abandonment that he'd been carrying.
All right, so that's his childhood. But the next chapter of his life, it throws him into a whole new kind of struggle. This time, it's a fight to escape persecution. So, fast forward to 2008. For the Christian community back in Chin State, Myanmar, things got really, really bad. The government starts cracking down, and I mean hard. Churches are being shuttered, pastors are literally being taken away. Just practicing your faith becomes this incredibly dangerous act of defiance. So the choice becomes pretty stark, right? Stay and risk absolutely everything, or run. And his escape, it wasn't a quick trip. We're talking a month-long trek through dense jungle. Just try to put yourself in his shoes for a second. The terror of it all. You can only move at night, you're hiding in the bushes, and you can hear soldiers' footsteps getting louder and louder just feet away from you. Every single sound, every rustle of a leaf could mean you're caught, or worse. So, you'd think making it out of the jungle would be the end of the struggle, right? Nope, it was really just the beginning of a whole new one. Now the challenge was surviving as a refugee in a totally new world.
2 years. That's how long you spent in Malaysia as a refugee. Just think about that. 2 whole years stuck in this agonizing limbo. No legal status, so he can't work legally. He's just living in these crowded conditions, waiting and waiting for the UN to finally process his application.
And then, finally, the day arrives, October 13th, 2010. He touches down on American soil, right in Chicago. You'd think, this is it, this monumental turning point, the start of the American dream. But, as he was about to find out, that dream came with a whole new set of massive challenges. I mean, for him, Chicago was basically another planet. The language barrier was huge. Simple things, stuff we don't even think about, like going grocery shopping, it felt like climbing Mount Everest. The culture shock was just so intense, and this really deep sense of isolation and homesickness started to set in. Here he is in the land of opportunity, but he felt completely and utterly alone.
But all of this, all this struggle, it was all building toward what is maybe the most pivotal moment in his entire story, something that happened in 2012 that changed everything.
And I want to use his own words here because they're just so powerful. He said, "It felt like a veil was lifted from my eyes. The darkness that had clouded my heart was replaced by a light I had never known." He was at a youth conference in Indiana, and he describes this spiritual awakening. It was the first time his faith became something deeply, truly personal. This wasn't just some emotional high. It was a fundamental shift in who he was.
And the change was immediate. You could see it right away. Suddenly, all that pain from his past, it wasn't just a source of suffering anymore. It became a source of empathy. This quiet, reserved guy starts to feel this pull, this nudge toward leadership and serving others. And then, the big one. He feels this clear, totally undeniable calling to dedicate his life to ministry.
So, this new calling leads him to the final chapter of his story. Well, the final chapter so far. This is where he takes all of those past experiences and channels them into a new powerful mission. This is him leading with purpose.
And his dedication was just off the charts. He enrolls in Bible college, but he's also working a full-time job. Then he has this really severe ankle injury and is struggling financially. But does he quit? No way! He pushes through all of it and graduates in 2018. And today, all of that determination is poured into leading the Overcomers Ministry, where he serves the Burmese community in Indianapolis. See, he didn't try to erase his past. He couldn't. Instead, he repurposed it. The abandonment, the fear, the isolation, all of that pain became the actual foundation for his ministry, a way to help other people who felt just as lost as he once did.
And that brings us to the end, and Timothy's journey really leaves us with this powerful question to think about. His life is just incredible proof that our scars don't have to define us, right? They don't have to be the end of the story. In fact, they can be the very thing that gives us our purpose. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What parts of our own past could we maybe repurpose for something greater?